Yeah, I'll react to that, sure.
North Wales, guys.
Hi, I'm Rick Steves, back with more of the best of Europe. This time, we're in North Wales, splitting slate, exploring castles, and steaming up mountains. Thanks for joining us.
Hi guys, my name's Connor. I like to watch things and learn about stuff. The original link to the video, top of the description. Below that, link to the Discord. Click on it, sends right over there. Love to have you. That was pretty good, right? I think Rick Steves is also a New Englander, but I am not positive.
Wales' top historical, natural, and cultural wonders are found here in the north. From towering Mount Snowdon to evocative castles to sweeping Victorian promenades, it's a poem written in landscape. I think this area has as much sightseeing diversity and interest as any place in Britain.
Cardiff?
We'll
Or that,
mountain
is that the
climb
south?
on a steam train. Learn some Welsh. Follow a miner deep into a slate mine. Shepherd sheep. Get passionate about castles.
Tables for the soldiers.
And immerse ourselves in Britain's top scenic wonders. The British Isles consist of England and 3 Celtic lands. Our target this time is North Wales, where we'll visit a beach resort, 2 castle towns, a slate mine, and a national park with Wales' tallest peak. We finish just over the border in the English city of Liverpool. We start in the town of Llandudno, a genteel Victorian beach resort. It was built after the advent of the railways, which made the Welsh seacoast easily accessible to England's industrial heartland. In the 1800s, the notion that bathing in seawater was good for your health was trendy, and the bracing sea air was just what the doctor ordered. Any self-respecting sea resort came with a nice long pier, offering vacation goers a day at sea and a good walk to boot.
Can you jump off?
Is hugely popular with the English. You won't see many other foreigners here. The long lines of old-time hotels offer their guests the warmest welcome possible. But in the fortified castle town of Conway, just a few miles away, we learned that the English weren't always so welcome. 8 centuries ago, those English were invaders, sent here by their king to help establish a foothold in a land he wanted to incorporate into his realm. These English garrison towns, with awe-inspiring walls and state-of-the-art castles, created what was known as the Ring of Stone and Iron around the land of the Welsh. They say Wales has more castles per square mile than any place in Europe, and most of them are English castles, built here in the 13th century by King Edward to establish English rule here and subdue the feisty Welsh. The greatest of Edward's castles.
My God, I can hear the TV. It's so annoying. One sec.
Okay. All right. Sorry. All right. Okay. All right.
Thank God. Castles.
Were feisty Welsh. The greatest of Edward's castles, like Conway Castle, were masterpieces of medieval engineering. Their towers were round, tougher to break through with no corners to knock off. The castle within a castle defense gave defenders a place to retreat and wreak havoc on the advancing enemy, or just wait for reinforcements. And with sea access, they could be restocked safely from England. Conway Castle has an interesting story, and local guides who hang out at the entrance ready to take you on an inexpensive impromptu tour tell the story well. Neville Hortorp brings this castle to life with gusto.
And it's a wonderful castle because it's 2 castles in one. We are going through into the soldiers' part of the castle. We have this lovely, great courtyard here.
This was a practical place where the military stayed then.
The military stayed here because this was simply a military castle with an adjunct for the king, really. This was here for the military. This is the banquet hall for everybody. There was wonder in the evenings here, a winter's evening with a massive fire there, and the lovely smell of the meat, and the odour of the wine, and the music from the minstrels, and all these people, the king, his people from London, the soldiers, all intermingled in here, and this is the life of the castle. But here's your thick wall. Here's your 10-foot wall, which is cutting you off from the soldiers' castle and bringing you right into the King's Park.
Okay, so enemy comes, raise the drawbridge, into the King's Zone.
So now we're in the King's part of the castle. This is the luxury part. These are the royal chambers all the way around here. This, of course, is the open courtyard for fresh air, a small food store there. The servants of the castle would be in these lower rooms, and these are the royal rooms. And as we get out here, we really see the fulfillment of Edward's idea. Whenever he builds a castle, he's got to have a water exit. He's got to be able to supply it from the river. He's got to have an escape by the river. And this was in all Edward's planning. Every castle he builds has to have this water divine exit and entry for him.
So the Welsh could be controlling all the land, and the English would still be fine here because they got the water access.
They've got the water, they've got the supplies, and they've got this magnificent castle, of course.
A stroll along the best medieval walls in Britain rewards you with grand and evocative views. This garrison town was a kind of 13th century green zone, or safe base, for the English invaders as they tried and tried to put down the angry Welsh insurgency. You can still see the original checkerboard street plan the English came up with when they built the castle and the ramparts. This grid plan of streets dates from about 1280, when Edward built Conway and filled it with English settlers. Even though he nearly bankrupted the country with his extravagant castle building, many consider Edward to be England's finest monarch. He established and consolidated the United Kingdom, in other words, added Wales and Scotland to England, in order to create a realm big enough to compete with the rising European powers of the age.
I remember learning about videos of, you know, the United Kingdom, England. Wales seemed to stay out of the complete control of England for much longer than I expected, especially considering it's so close to England compared to slightly more compared to, you know, obviously Scotland borders England, but I think to the, do you know what I mean? I just know I can't.
Charming
words.
High Street leads down to the harbor, which permitted Edward to safely restock his castle. Wander downhill, enjoying the slice of Welsh life scene.
It's a big dog.
Plasmauer, a rare surviving Elizabethan house, dates from 1580. It was the first great Welsh home to be built within Conway's walls.
Textured look.
Stepping into the house, visitors are wowed by the heraldry over the fireplace. Repainted in its original bright colors, it proclaims the rich family's princely lineage. Billed as the finest Elizabethan house in Wales, Plasmauer offers a delightful peek into 16th century domestic life. An excellent audio guide explains each room.
I thought that was Rick for a second. I'm like, beard.
All the latest circa 1600 refinements. A hanging bread cage to keep food away from wandering critters. Hay on the floor to add a little warmth and soak up the spillage. And a good supply of fresh meat in the pantry. The lady of the house's bedroom doubled as a sitting room with a foot warmer by the chair and a finely carved...
I am so limited in my palate of meat. Especially like land meat. I've eaten a lot of different things from the ocean, right? There's really nothing I don't... I'm not a big oyster fan, crab. Anyways, but I've only ever eaten pigs, cows, and chickens. I think that's it. I would love to just like one time like have a venison steak or like a rabbit soup or a pheasant or something like that. Just to try, like you know.
And a good supply of fresh meat in the pantry. The lady of the house's bedroom doubled as a sitting room with a foot warmer by the chair and a finely carved four-poster bed. The curtains were drawn at night to keep out the bugs and keep in the warmth. The great chamber was for hearty feasting, followed by boisterous gaming, dancing, and music. All this extravagant entertainment under a ceiling full of more heraldry reflecting important, if dubious, family connections, left a powerful impact on guests. Conway's harbor, once vital for military purposes and then a busy industrial port, is now a laid-back zone that locals treat like a town square. It's Saturday night, and the action is...
The seagull call is such a very soothing noise for me.
On the zone that locals treat like a town square. It's Saturday night, and the action is on the quay. The scene is mellow, multi-generational, and perfectly Welsh.
Oh, let me skip
It's a
them.
small town, and everyone's here, enjoying the local cuisine, chatting on the pier, spilling out of the pub, and savoring that great Welsh pastime of torturing little crabs. The next English castle town over is Carnarvon. Like
You got to get a heavy stone, toss it in the air, let it land on the beach right there, and you'll see the squirt, 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 the clams, and then dig quick and catch them.
It originated as one of King Edward's garrison towns. It still spreads out from its protective castle following Edward's original grid plan laid within its still impressive ramparts. Carnarvon was the most expensive castle an English king ever built. Constructed as a key fortress in Edward's iron ring of castles, its sheer immensity was designed to prompt humility. It's famous for its physical grandeur and for its association with the Prince of Wales. In modern times, to give the Welsh a sense of belonging to Britain, the Prince of Wales has been given his title here. It was here that, in 1969, Queen Elizabeth crowned her son Charles Prince of Wales. My friend and fellow tour guide, Martin Delandovitz, helps me with all this history.
So why here, on this desolate, windy north coast of Wales, would Edward build such an incredible castle?
Edward had to conquer Wales, and once he started to move west, he did what John Wayne did many years later. He moved west, he built forts. In the forts, he put soldiers. The garrison of soldiers is safe, nobody else is safe, and therefore the fort controls the area. It's how any castle works.
So this is an English toehold here with an angry insurgency all around.
That's right, and when you think about the walled town of Carnarvon, think of those settlers moving in from back east called England. They are really pioneer settlers sheltering in fear behind a medieval town wall.
Wow.
This castle alone, one of 13, cost nearly a year's income for Edward I. It's the most expensive castle ever built by a king of England.
And it's fancy.
It's one of the few castles, I think, that manages to achieve both architecture, art, and defensibility at the same time. It works as a castle, and it works as a piece of art at the same time.
Nice.
You can relive a medieval moment or two by watching a metal-thumping reenactment.
Hold on, guys. I got a fake one. I mean real. Huh? Pretty good? All right. Okay, sorry. All right. Okay, all right. All right, okay, back.
Thursday, the day after. What? Sorry, what? After Wednesday, it's Thursday, isn't it?
So with all these incredible castles, were the English able to keep the Welsh down?
Well, politically, yes, but culturally, no. This is still the land of the Welsh language, where we compose poetry and we sing songs in Welsh.
Yeah. So poetry is a big deal.
Oh, poetry is huge. It is a manly thing to recite your recently composed poem to your workmates in work on a Monday morning.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
Now, what is the state of the language today?
Well, today it is fantastic in that if you go to a primary school, a standard state primary school, everything is taught in Welsh.
So why is the Welsh language so important to you?
Rick, I don't think you can even conceive of Wales without the Welsh language. By that I mean the words to explain Wales only exist in Welsh. Mae'n fendith I fod yn Gymro ac yn siarad y Cymraeg.
What's that?
It's a blessing, it's a privilege to be a Welshman who speaks Welsh.
Dewch I weld ni yma yng Nghanarfon, lle mae'r tywydd bob tro'n wael ac I byth yn braf mae bob tro'n bwrw.
That's a big boy.
Croeso I Gymru, dwch I Gastell Gaernarfon, mae'n braf yn Gaernarfon, a da ni'n edrych ymlaen i'ch gweld chi.
Traveling through Wales, it's easy for the traveler not to realize that the language here actually is Welsh.
Peth newydd yna, be mae'n rhywbeth wedi cynhyrchu ydy...
Locals speak Welsh to each other and English to visitors. While everything here is bilingual, Welsh comes first. Taking advantage of the mobility our rental car provides, we're enjoying a bed and breakfast immersed in the lush Welsh countryside.
It's interesting. I wonder if if Welsh and English to a, because it's so hard to picture what English sounds like when you speak English and you've spoken it your whole life. And I wonder often, like, what do we sound like? Does that sound sort of like English? And I find a good way to try and tell kind of what English sounds like to people who don't understand you is to connect like 5 words and say them as if they're one word, and forget the meaning of it. We'll say forget the meaning of it. So stop thinking about what the words mean and just listen to the sound. Forget the meaning of it. Forget the meaning of it. Forget the meaning of it. Or like, that tree is really tall over there. So I'm just going to say, that tree is really tall over there. That tree is really tall over there. Do you know what I'm trying to say, or do I look crazy to you? Or the man is walking up the do you know what I mean? It's fascinating to think about. Okay? Or am I just...
The breakfast is as good as any fancy hotel.
Ooh. Love the plates.
The rooms come with elegant old 4-poster beds. The lounge is just right for making friends from around the world. And the pristine setting is ideal for testing the reflexes of the family sheepdogs. Sheep are everywhere in Wales. They speckle the countryside. And every shepherd needs a good sheepdog. Dogs, trained to respond to different whistles, love to bully the sheep wherever the farmer wants them to go. And every once in a while...
So are sheep just too dumb to, I feel like that was mean. I feel like I said dumb really sharply. Dumb. Like, you can't just, like, pick one sheep to train, and then they'll all follow. I guess fear is a really big response. Okay, never mind.
That means in for a good haircut.
Oh my god, I love watching sheep shearing compilations.
And where there are sheep, there are woolen mills. And some welcome...
What did it do?
And some welcome the public. My favorite is in the town of Treffru, where you can follow the spinning process from raw wool to the final fabric. You'll see a traditional spinning wheel and a busy historic mill in action. Here, the mechanical loom reads a pattern to weave an intricate design. The mechanical loom reads a pattern to weave an...
So, like, does it grab one lace up and then goes back and grabs it and then pulls it? But then how?
Design. And
oh, I know.
Reads a pattern to weave an...
It has 2 things. So you bring up one, this thing grabs it, and then the other one comes up and it grabs it. Right?
And if all that hard work stokes your need for a warm and wearable souvenir, that's part of the mill visit as well. For some heavier industry, we're visiting Blaenau Festiniog, the quintessential Welsh slate mining town. The shops seem to have changed little since the mine stopped being profitable back in the 1960s.
Sounds like a
long rows of humble homes, nicknamed 2 up and 2 down for their tiny rooms, feel empty, as the town's population today is half what it was in its slate mining heyday.
Something I want to learn about more about Britain is that the insane amount of by the way, that's super cool. Just I would love to climb up there. The insane amount of matching houses. Like you would only see that over here. I mean, maybe in like the 50s when they were like mass producing houses. But like if you're in like a gated community some gated communities, like you're not allowed to make giant changes to your house. It's gonna make it kind of stand out too much from the other houses. But like, it's so strange to see in one of these English videos, Welsh, British videos, and not see like very vastly different neighboring houses. Does that make sense? So I wonder what's the reason behind that.
Town, and that company was the Llycfed slate mine.
That's a mine, for sure.
Slate mining played a blockbuster role in Welsh heritage, and the Llycfed mine now welcomes visitors. It does a fine job of explaining the mining culture of Victorian Wales.
Was this a Tom Scott video?
Visitors ride a train deep into the mountain where a guide tells of the harsh working conditions and traditional mining techniques.
Down here, we're about 300 feet underground. On the deep mine, so you can go down to 450 feet. But the mine itself is over 1,500 feet deep. Working hours would be from 6 in the morning till 6 at night, half an hour break for the lunch, and they'd work for 6 days a week, with Sundays being their only days off. There are 3 days holidays every year. They were usually Christmas Day, Good Friday, and Thanksgiving Day, and they were taken without pay.
When I think of slate, I think of very crumbly rock, which makes this extra terrifying, but it's because I don't know something, obviously.
Our tour finishes with a slate splitting demonstration.
To try and cut the slate down, he would try and cut the block down in half every time. Slate splitting is still done the same way today as it was 150 years ago, and still done by hand. Tried inventing machines to do this work, but at the moment, nothing can beat man in doing the job.
And for every ton of slate the miners produced, there were about 10 tons of waste left outside in heaps. Singing helped the miners endure their harsh lives. While the mining culture is virtually gone, the tradition of singing survives. The men's choirs of Wales are famous for their beautiful music. Town choirs welcome visitors to both their weekly practices and their many concerts. Tonight, the men's choir of Denbigh is performing. For peace and tranquility, don't miss Bodnant Garden. This sumptuous 80-acre display of floral color is one of Britain's most impressive gardens. While the flowers are at their best in spring and early summer, we're here in late August, and it's still plush with vibrant colors bursting out all over. The gardens, terraces, and delightful reflecting ponds were designed to incorporate the existing landscape. The wild English style seems to spar playfully with the more formal Italian-style gardens. For nature at its wild and Welsh best, it's Snowdonia National Park, arguably Britain's most rugged and beautiful mountain area. The park, Britain's second largest with over 800 square miles of pristine hiking country and a dozen of its highest peaks.
I like looking at topographical maps, and you can definitely notice Wales is rather hilly compared to other parts of England.
Is one of
compared to England.
The country's favorite natural playgrounds. The resort center of Snowdonia National Park is Bettws-y-Coed. While very touristy and commercial, this town is a picturesque and handy jumping-off spot for exploring the scenic wonders of North Wales. Bettws-y-Coed is great for family fun, and it's the springboard for a world of popular hikes. The Miners Bridge is a favorite for painters. And the scenic Swallow Falls are just upstream. Nearby, Bethgelert is smaller and less touristy. This quintessential national park village, also the starting point for many fine hikes, is ideal for those wanting to experience the natural grandeur of Snowdonia. Mount Snowdon, the tallest mountain in England or Wales, is the park's centerpiece.
How tall?
Each year, 500,000 people scale this 3,500-foot peak.
Oh,
while the standard hike to the summit takes only about 4 hours, there's plenty of challenge for those looking for tougher routes. In fact, Sir Edmund Hillary and his gang trained here before tackling Mount Everest. The easiest ascent is by the Snowdon Mountain Railway, a 4-mile-long cog railway dating from 1896. The mighty little engines push the jam-packed cars scenically up past the tree line and ultimately to the top of Wales.
Oh, that's beautiful. Imagine you heard like a clink and then the engine stop and then you start rolling backwards. That's amazing.
Here on Mount Snowdon, we're higher than anybody in Wales or England. Everything we've seen so far is within about 20 miles of this spot. And there's lots more nearby. Ireland is just over the sea to the west. England is just that way. And 50 miles to the northeast, the Beatles performed for their first time in Liverpool. Liverpool, just over the border in England, is a gritty but surprisingly enjoyable city.
So
it offers a fascinating
Liverpool
urban
and
contrast to
Manchester
the natural splendors
really
of Wales.
close to each other?
It's an interesting stop both for Beatles fans and for those who'd like to look urban Britain straight in the eyes. The city, once run down and pretty grim, is enjoying a renaissance. Albert Dock is the centerpiece. Opened in 1846 by Prince Albert, Queen Victoria's husband, the docks enclose 7 acres of water. It's surrounded by a 5-story tall brick warehouse, now housing fine restaurants, concert venues, a convention center, and fancy condos. In its day, Liverpool was England's greatest seaport. It prospered as one corner of the triangular commerce of the 18th century slave trade. British merchants and shippers powered this 3-sided trading scheme. They exported manufactured goods to Africa in exchange for enslaved Africans who were then shipped to the Americas and traded for raw materials like cotton, tobacco, and sugar, which they imported back to Britain. While parties on all 3 sides made money, the big profits came home.
Wait, isn't that a V trade? Never mind.
Imported back to Britain. While parties on all 3 sides made money, the big profits came home to England. As Britain boomed, so did Liverpool. The Merseyside Maritime Museum tells the story of the port of what was the second city of the British Empire. After the shipping of slaves was outlawed in Britain in the early 1800s, Liverpool kept its port busy as a transfer point for emigrants.
So fascinating seeing the ships obviously switching from... I have too many thoughts in my head. I feel the same way about cannons and watch them over time. But even more so about ships, in that it's like they're learning new ways of steel making and different incorporations into the ship, but they still have the sails on them. Like you have the smokestacks and you have the sails. So it's like that switching period, you know?
Whether your ancestors came from Scandinavia, Ukraine, Ireland, or Wales, there's a good chance they left Europe from this port. Between 1830 and 19...
So that could be me.
1930, 9 million emigrants sailed from Liverpool to find their dreams in the New World. Most went to the USA. Awe-inspiring steamers like the Lusitania called this port home. Many of us know Liverpool as the springboard for the band that changed the world back in the 1960s, the Beatles. The Beatles Story is a museum about the band that made rock and roll a worldwide phenomenon.
Hot take, all right? I hope I don't make anyone mad or anything. It's not that I don't think they're good. It's just I'm not like, whoa. I'm not like blown away. I feel like the reputation of the Beatles precedes their music, and so when I'm listening to them, I'm like, yeah, that's pretty amazing. But I guess it wasn't just their music that made them like the Beatles, but I'm probably gonna make people mad. Yeah, they're good, but
Beatles
they're revered as like gods or something.
Story is a museum about the band that made rock and roll a worldwide phenomenon.
I guess that's why.
Many people visit
Right there.
Liverpool just to remember John, Paul, George, and Ringo.
Okay, folks, on the right-hand side is the McCartney house. John and Paul wrote some of their first hits here in this house.
For a proper Beatle pilgrimage, you need to take a Beatles tour. Several companies run tours daily, from slick big buses to more personal minibus tours. Guides are fountains of Beatle trivia, giving you the entire rundown on every site in town associated with the group and its music.
And it was in these poorer parts of Liverpool that the Beatles were born and grew up. And in fact, Ringo Starr, living in Admiral Grove on the right, we're even going past the pub where his mother had to work to pay for the rent. This is the neighbourhood known to the people of Liverpool as Penny Lane. And Paul McCartney and all the Beatles would be coming here as young boys. Now this is the shelter in the middle of the roundabout, and Paul sings about behind the shelter in the middle of the roundabout there's a pretty nurse selling poppies from a tray. Then you've got the bank on the corner with the arrogant bank manager, and Paul McCartney sings, on the corner there's a banker with a motor car. The little children laugh behind his back. Further down the road is the fire station with the clean machine. On the corner there's a barber showing photographs of all the heads he's had the pleasure to have known. All the people stop and say hello. You got all these things that you see throughout the year that Paul McCartney describes the song taking place still to this day.
Liverpool entertains from its Beatle lore to its powerful shipping heritage. And North Wales from its dramatic castles to its evocative landscape and history. And from its natural beauty to its friendly people. Packs an impressive sightseeing punch.
This is a fascinating corner of Great Britain. As we've learned again, having local friends and guides to explain what we're looking at brings our sightseeing to life. I'm Rick Steves. Thanks for joining us. Until next time, keep on traveling.
Thanks, Rick.
As we've learned again, having local friends and guides to bring...
Say, you look funny with that big camera on your shoulder.
Outtakes.
And he married Eleanor of Castile, and she gave him 14 children. And then she said, that's enough. But anyway.
North Wales has as much fun and sightseeing and just fascinating stuff as any place you'd find this side of the Mississippi.
This side of the Mississippi. First time I'd seen bloopers. Great video as always. Loved if you guys have ever been here or if you live over here or just any of your comments. All right. I appreciate them all and hope you guys are doing all right. If you are not doing all right, chin up. You'll be good soon. Bye, guys.